This is my Thursday thought. We're hearing a lot about our welfare system at the moment, our budget, with the federal government unveiling policies to restructure the way it spends money in the hope to reduce the long-term dependency on social support. This issue is very touchy, particularly with the tendency to problematise people that depend on government support, including teenage carers of parents with disabilities. Demonising people who rely on support, often through no fault of their own, is a cruel way to look at it. The mantra of course is to create jobs, create education opportunities, and get people off support and living a self-sufficient life. It's an admirable goal, and indeed it's one that I think any of the recipients of social welfare would love. But having worked in the community and public housing sector for the last 6 years, I've seen and heard the diverse stories of people who get into that situation. There are those with mental and physical disabilities, those who have gone down the path of substance abuse, but also many stories that resonate with anyone just like you and me. A loss of family members that leads to an emotional breakdown, cancer, preventing work, and with government support not being enough to cover living expenses, and even the people whose jobs have simply disappeared. Call centre operators whose jobs have been sent offshore, retail staff who don't get enough hours to pay the rent, and factory workers whose jobs are now automated. Even mining workers and engineers who are the first to fall off the end of the mining boom. There are about 15,000 people on the public housing waiting list in Queensland. The current state government has a construction program to deliver just 400 homes in the next decade. It's cancelled without any logical explanation the Logan Renewal Initiative, which would have delivered 2,600 homes in the Logan area alone over the next decade. How many of us are sick and tired of every election of all the parties talking about number one priority being jobs? Then, without fail, in the next term, those jobs just don't get created, not to the level that they promise. The worst is that the reality is that more jobs are becoming obsolete through automation, more jobs are becoming obsolete through industry shutdown and offshoring, and more people are joining the job market, so any jobs that are created isn't making up the deficit. The jobs that are being created are largely part-time or casual, which aren't sufficient to live on independently, and in a family situation they're often not enough to cover childcare costs, so many families go into single incomes. That's not necessarily a bad thing. Stay-at-home parents perform arguably the most important role in our society. But the reality we face is that full employment isn't just an aspirational goal anymore. It's probably impossible. Job automation is going to keep happening at a faster rate, and that's one of the whole purposes of technological advancement, so humans don't have to do the menial jobs that machines can do for us. So if our future is that we will have a growing number of people who won't be in employment as we know it, some estimates put that as high as 90% by the year 2100. How do we restructure our society, economy, and way of life to handle that? Do we look at universal basic incomes, where everyone gets paid an amount to live on by the government, and wages for jobs are on top of that? Do we have a future where currency itself is obsolete, and people have access to what they need, and contribute what they can and what they're good at? That sounds like some Star Trek utopian fantasy. But the fact is our government needs to start thinking about the future that's ahead of us, not just the next election cycle. The Industrial Revolution model of everyone working is simply a thing of the past. It's history. So what's the alternative? Keen to hear your thoughts. That's my Thursday thought.